Hello my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I've got another paranormal video to share with you guys. Now, the subject of this video was actually recommended to me in the comment section of last week's video by my dear friend Carol. So hello Carol, thank you so much for mentioning this. She thought I should give it a look because it's got a very interesting history. And I started looking around, and boy does it. Now, the things that make this building interesting are kind of twofold. One, it's the building itself and how it's run. And then on the other hand, it's the paranormal activity that takes place inside of the building and some of the really strange things that have happened there. Now, the Dakota is located, well, like I said, in New York City, and it's located on 72nd Street. And the construction for this building was completed in 1884, and it became the first luxury apartment building in New York. And I mean, calling it an apartment building is really underselling it. It's this magnificent structure. I'll input a picture right here so you can see for yourself. Just this really magnificent structure that houses a bunch of apartments. And when I say apartments, I'm not talking about the things you would typically think of when you think of an apartment. These are 8, 9, 10 room apartments, very large. They cost a lot of money even today. When I was researching, I saw that Lauren Bacall, the actress, she lived there for 53 years. And she recently sold her apartment for $23 million. So they're very extravagant apartments. And the building itself, it has a billiards room, it has a spa, just really luxurious things within this apartment that kind of make it a community all its own. And in fact, if you've ever seen the movie Rosemary's Baby, they use this complex as for the outside scenes of the complex that's used in the movie, and it's kind of the same idea the way it's run. This building, not just anyone can move in there. It's a cooperative complex, and there's a board. And if you want to move in, you have to apply. You have to provide them with many years worth of financial statements, employment records, your taxes. There's a $1,000 non-refundable application fee that you have to give in order for them to do the background check and everything else. And even then, the odds of you actually getting an apartment in this building is slim to none. They're very, very picky. And by all accounts, from some of the things I've read, they kind of get off on being really picky. They like turning people away, telling them that they're not, elite enough to live there. So that's so crazy. Something so elite, gives me weird vibes just thinking about it. So along with Lauren Bacall, there have been many, many famous, rich celebrities that have lived in this building. Most famously, perhaps, is that in 1973, John Lennon and Yoko Ono moved into that building, and John Lennon lived there until his death in 1980. And when he was murdered, it was actually right in front of the building, in the archway just out front. So that really sort of lends to the mythology of the building. Now, to this day, Yoko Ono, she still lives there. And when you're reading through some of the ghost stories associated with this building, one of them comes from her. And she says that on many occasions, she has seen him, his spirit, in the building, in their apartment specifically. She says that she sees him sitting at their white piano, and that he often tells her not to be afraid, that he's still with her. And she's not the only one that has claimed to see his spirit around the building. Employees and tourists have also said that they've seen him. Now, what's interesting is it wasn't after, it's not just since his passing that stories of ghosts have circulated around this building. Because you've got to think, it's been up since 1884. So surely, throughout that time, there have been deaths, just with the passage of time, people growing old, passing away. And, so there's bound to be some sort of spirits and energies left behind. And in fact, before he died, John Lennon was saying that he was seeing a ghost in the building. And what he reported that he would see was a woman wandering the halls just crying. And over time, that got reported as being seen more and more times. And workers started to see her a lot as well, like construction workers, maintenance workers, just staff of the building. And people started to put two and two together, and they think they've come up with who she is. So they think that the crying lady is a woman named Elsie Vesley, I hope I'm saying that right, who was a manager at the Dakota apartments all the way through the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. What unfortunately happened to her was, while she was working there as a manager, one day her son was very tragically struck by a truck out in the street in front of the building, and he passed away. And by all accounts, Elsie, of course, was never the same again after that happened. And she was just changed. She was so sad for the rest of her life. And she became very, very protective of all the children that lived in the Dakota apartments. And so people kind of think that that's her spirit roaming the halls, making sure everyone is safe, but still just racked with grief from the loss of her son. It's so sad to think of. So, very interesting though. Another ghost that is frequently reported, especially by staff, is that of a little girl. She's a little girl, very friendly. She's dressed in turn-of-the-century clothing. I've heard she wears like a bonnet and a little yellow dress. She often tells people that it's her birthday. She'll just happily say, "It's my birthday," before running away. And as sweet as she sounds, that's also terrifying. I'd be very scared by that. And then I've heard of another one that appears to be a grown man walking the halls, but then when you see his face, he has the face of a little boy. So that's very interesting as well. And I wonder what the story is there. There's just so many interesting things. Another thing that I found very interesting when I was doing this research was that there's one apartment, I think it's apartment 226. I think. I'll correct myself here on the screen if that's not right, but I think it's apartment 226, and it's a 10-bedroom apartment, and it has been for sale for 8 years, which is very odd considering that I was reading, for the first 45 years of this building being open, there was 0 vacancies for 45 years. And still to this day, you know, it's a very bustling, very popular spot. But there's this one apartment that has been for sale for 8 years. And for whatever reason, it just will not sell. It's so creepy. Maybe the people who go in and look at it are just picking up on some really bad energy in there, because I know that's so important. Like, if you go into a place, if it doesn't feel right, don't live there. That place is not for you. Find somewhere that feels good. A place where the energy matches your own. That's so important, especially if you're going to be living there, sleeping there, spending days on end. So important. So yeah, the price, I was reading that the price had recently dropped. Originally, they had been asking $25 million for it, and now it's dropped to $19 million, which of course to you and I, to most of us, that sounds like an insane amount of money. And we'd be like, of course it's not selling, it's $19 million, but to the people that buy these apartments, that's, you know, a typical amount of money to spend on a home, I guess. But yeah, it makes me wonder what is in that room. What is the energy that they're picking up on that's keeping people from buying it for 8 years in a popular, elite, exclusive apartment building? So weird. Now this last bit, I just want to read it to you. I've got it pulled up on my phone because I want to get it word for word because it's very interesting, and it's about a family that lived in the building. And so in this article it says, the most recent events I could find documentation for came from the Weinsteins. According to Frederick Weinstein and his wife Suzanne, there's a whole lot of activity in their apartment at the Dakota. It started with the sound of footsteps in their dining room, as if someone was frantically pacing back and forth. It seems that this pacing spirit has something against Frederick, who has found himself repeatedly injured in the dining room. Chairs have been pulled out from under him, he has been pushed by someone who wasn't there, and on multiple occasions it has seemed like the rug has been pulled from under his feet. On one night, on his way home, Frederick looked up to his living room window and was shocked to see the lights were on. Even more shocking to him was that the light was coming from a crystal chandelier. Seeing as there were no chandeliers in the Weinsteins' apartment, Freddie checked again, making sure he was looking at the third-floor corner window that was his home. Still, the crystal chandelier hung in place, lighting up the room. When Frederick entered his apartment, it was dark, and sure enough, there was no crystal chandelier. Possibly the creepiest thing to happen to Frederick happened shortly after he played with his children. Frederick and his kids were goofing around with the Ouija-style game that used lettered tiles instead of the board and pointer. That was your first mistake, Frederick. Never, I would never. Don't you ever mess around with a Ouija board. Whether or not you believe that that sort of conduit, like whether it's the pointer and the board or a lettering system like Frederick was using, whether that's all nonsense or not, you most certainly aren't going to see me messing around with it, just in case. I don't want to accidentally bring anything unwanted into my home, into my life. Nothing. Don't mess with that stuff. Don't touch it. Don't look at it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyway, okay, so he's messing around with a Ouija-style game that used lettered tiles instead of the board and pointer. During the game, the spirit messages suggested that the Weinsteins were in contact with the ghost of a little girl. When the game was done, Frederick put all of the pieces away, stacking the word tiles on a bookshelf. Days later, Frederick found 2 of the word tiles in the pockets of his suit. He came across a 3rd tile in his eyeglass case. The 3 letters were I, C, U. Nope. No thanks. So there you go. There you have it. That's a bit of the history of the Dakota apartments on 72nd Street in New York City. If you've ever been to New York and you've seen them, let me know what they looked like in person. I mean, from pictures, it looks absolutely gorgeous. And if I ever do make it to New York City, I will definitely drive by, give it a quick look, keep my distance, you know, all the regular things. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks again, Carol, for the suggestion. If you guys have any suggestions of things you want me to look into, just let me know. I love looking into the things that you guys want to hear more about. And I will see you guys on Friday. I've got another book talk coming up. We're going to be talking about Lisa Jewell's new book, which I am absolutely loving. And I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. Have a great day. Bye.